All right, go ahead.
My name is Lisa Hill, and I'm speaking for myself this morning. I live near the West Wash Dam area, city-owned property in Ward 5, near Keystone in North McCarran. Earlier this spring, I was out walking my dogs in that area, and I saw a City of Reno truck spraying something. At that time, there was no sign as to what was happening. There was no public notice about what they were spraying. Come to find out, the city was using 2,4-D, an herbicide, in that area. I have several concerns about this. That area, and by the way, Neil, I want to just thank you. You know how protective our neighborhood is of that space. And I want to thank you for all the work that you've done with our neighborhood on protecting it and providing amenities and different things. This area is frequented by multiple walkers, dog walkers. My children played over there. It's a really special place with lots of wildlife. There's a labyrinth that's been put in there. We care a lot about this area of our city. There's several concerns that I have about what happened. There was no public notice about what was happening. If I had known that an herbicide was going to be sprayed, I probably wouldn't have gone out there that day. I really try to minimize my exposure to those things. I found out recently that 2 weeks ago they were spraying, and I was wondering, why are they spraying weeds that have already set their seeds, that have already died? So that's another question that I have. And come to find out, the state agriculture department had specifically asked the city to not use the blower close to homes. So that's another question that I have. I came here this morning because I'm requesting that the city use some staff time to investigate what's happening up there. I'm asking that the city evaluate maybe a tiered approach to chemical exposure of the residents. I myself work in healthcare, and I'm deeply concerned about all of the pesticides, pharmaceuticals, herbicides that are in our food supply and that we're exposed to on a daily basis as we go about our lives. I heard last week a scientist say that 75% of the antibiotics produced are used in our food supply. All of this exposure is making us sick and causing unintended consequences, even though these substances are legal. As an example, antibiotic-resistant bacteria is causing havoc in our healthcare system. And so I'm just simply asking that the city evaluate their practices and put into place best practices and reevaluate your policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. So how... I didn't see it. So can we get a report later on how we're going to address this?
Madam Mayor,
and I apologize. I'm so sorry.
Madam Mayor, we did send a memo. Council probably has not read it. We sent it either late yesterday or this morning.
This morning.
So I don't know if you would like us to address it now, but we did send a memo to council addressing some of these issues, and I could have Director Flansburgh come up and maybe speak to it if you'd like.
I think that would be good. And The reason I say that is because in light of what this council has been through over this type of issue, I would have thought that direction was pretty clear.
For the record, John Flansburgh, Director of Public Works. We had a complaint last week. I have our managers have followed up with on the complaint to understand what has occurred. There's been some discussion about the type of equipment, the use of the herbicides that we are using in our spaces. And just to kind of frame it, we have about 1,400 unique locations, about 250 acres total. This is everything from roadside, next to our roadsides to our drainages. And one of the most effective ways for large weed management has been the use of herbicides. In light of the complaint that we received from Corey Frey, our managers Eric Strong and Ryan Bird went up to meet with her and others to understand the concerns and to work with them on what they'd like to see up there. We are going to review our practices and what we are using out there. Again, the herbicides that we have used, it's the most effective thing that we have in our toolbox with the resources that we have. So we do use those in certain areas. We did meet with the Department of Agriculture and talk about this area. They have never said don't use the type of equipment that we're using, but they did recommend when we met with them this time that we give a larger buffer zone between residential areas and where we're spraying. When we met with Corey Frey, Eric and Ryan have reported back to me that we're going to look at using doing some hand pulling or other methods besides herbicide in that area after our contact with Corey. And again, we will review our practices. What we're up against is a fire hazard with weeds. We had a spring this year that was great in terms of water came in every so often, but we got a lot of vegetation growth out there in our rights of ways, and so that's one thing that we're going to be combating against. And when those dry up, they become a fire hazard. In our drainage areas, when the weeds dry up and we have long-standing, they inhibit the water flow. And so, those are the things that we're looking at, trying to make sure that we have good stormwater conveyance and that we are taking care of, our fire hazards and having, a buffer zone between that and our urban interface. So that's part of it. We will review the entire program of what we have. We'll look at the specific locations, of where we're spraying and applying herbicides, and we'll look at all the complaints that have come, and we'll come back and give a report to the council. But I just wanted to explain what we're doing today, why we do it that way, and we're, bottom line, we don't want to spray herbicides either. We don't want to spray chemicals out there. It's just within the resources that we have, it's the most effective product and method we have.
But we do, and that's what concerns me, and not just that area, all over the city.
It is.
And the other thing I want to know is, what is the policy on public notice? Is there a policy to public notice that?
There's not.
So that's got to change. Absolutely. So I think that is only prudent. But Councilwoman Dewar, this is something that you follow regularly, and we're looking for alternatives.
Right.
But I really think this is a practice that needs to stop.
Right. And I know that John's been looking at integrated pest management, which deals with all the different uses of pesticides, herbicides, every kind of side, and other ways to do it. I think when you're looking at the report, looking at the practices, the last incident was this one's about spraying too close to people. The last one was about spraying too close to the river. Both of these issues seem to trigger, concerns. So I think it would be good to see addressing of that. We talked about the noticing issue last time. Some cities do it. They post, like the week before they're going to spray, and they lay out the areas that they're going to spray. And I also think some of the pesticides require a certain period of time, both for your staff to stay out of that area while it's still wet, and a certain period after, and I'm sure it's all per the label instructions.
Yeah, and we're not using pesticides, just herbicides.
Right, but herbicides as well. And I think some cities use an area where they mark off with orange tape or some way to not just let people know ahead of time, but to let people know after it's been sprayed so they don't accidentally wander into the area. So I'm sure you'll come up with another 10 things to do as well. So hand it back to you.
And I do think maybe this is something we have a workshop on, because this is extremely serious. Councilwoman.
Thank you. And Ms. Hill said it perfectly. The residents in this area are very active, and this is a highly traveled, frequented area with people and their dogs and et cetera. I just wonder if there's an opportunity, and this may not apply to every area where we're spraying, but since we do have a group of such active neighbors, and hand pulling might be the most, in their minds, the most effective and least intrusive manner, if we can't facilitate some sort of instructional assistance and rally